It's time for ACC Central, presented by College Baseball Central. Hosted by Monty Taylor, Micah Butel, and Nick Dioli.
Welcome back to another preview episode of ACC Central. I'm Monty Taylor. I am once again joined by Micah Butel and Nick Dioli. Guys, we are talking some NC State Wolfpack baseball. We are getting ever so closer to the regular season. We'll start with Micah. Micah, how are you doing? How are you feeling about this NC State baseball team?
How am I? Let me think. Do I want to make Nick mad or do I want to be honest?
I mean, I think that's a decision you should have made before I called on you, but, take your time.
No, it's better podcasting, because I guess if you're watching, you can see Nick squirm right now because Nick knows that I want to say what makes him mad. But no, I think NC State, we might see Wolfpack might be a thing in 2025.
Nick, did what Micah say make you happy? How you doing?
I'm good. No, it doesn't make me. It doesn't make me mad. I think Mike has been very consistent on NC State going into this year. So I like to say I'm kind of right there with him. This team has the potential to get back to Omaha and make some noise in the ACC. So they're one of the top half teams and possibly the top third of this conference. So. Yeah, there's a lot to be excited about with this NC State roster.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to talk about today. I think there's a lot of fluidity in what they're trying to do to open up the season and where they're going to be at. So I think it's going to add a little bit more question marks, but I think overall we feel pretty good about them. But it's going to be interesting to see how things shake out early on in the season. But we can start right away with our key departures here. A lot of power leaves the lineup in Jacob Cozart, Garrett Pennington, Alec Makarevich, and even Brandon Butterworth and Eli Serrano to an extent. Lots of big losses there with Sam Highfill, the mayor, and Logan Whitaker moving on. Who's the biggest name, Nick, that you're going to miss at NC State this year?
Oh man, I mean, if you're pulling at my heartstrings, it's Sam, the mayor, the freshman star from the 2021 Omaha team, and the way he's bounced back and just made himself like the leader of last year's squad and getting back to Omaha and just having a fantastic performance in Omaha too. So you're pulling at my heartstrings. You're asking me the emotional pick, probably Sam, but I'm also torn between Alec and Garrett. I mean, those were two key transfers NC State got last year that I think all NC State fans wish that they could have just enjoyed more. I feel like, at least for me, 1 year was just not enough with those two guys. I mean, I got excited every time Alex made a plate appearance. I got excited every time Garrett would rip a double down the field. Those two guys, I think, are huge key power guys that really helped this team get to Omaha. And, Eli was huge too. I think that was kind of a little surprise to me that he committed to the draft so early. So that was kind of a little unexpected just in my terms, but Alec and Garrett will be missed on this roster.
Yeah, I mean, those are good picks. I agree with you. There's a lot of one-year transfer guys in the ACC that I'm sad we only got to see for a year. And Pennington Bear, I was on the hype train for him real early when I saw him.
Really
in the fall.
Early, you were.
Yeah, when I saw him in the fall against Duke, I was on the hype train real early. Makarevich, I came a little bit late on, but just such a fun corner infield there. But how about you, Micah? Who is NC State going to miss the most? I know you tend to lean towards transfers, but they didn't lose too much in the transfer ranks. What are your thoughts? Who are they going to miss the most?
Every meme that Monty made.
There is a bunch. I mean,
that is literally meme.
It is.
That is the all meme team
on this state team, Monty.
Yeah.
That is what NC State is going to miss. They're going to miss the memes of Mr. Butterworth and AMAC and
Pennington Bear.
Pennington Bear. And
I did do one for Cozart too. I can't remember what it was, but it was the Titanic scene that said "paint me like one of your French girls," but it was something else. I can't remember the specifics there, but yeah, that's a good point. This is up there.
That's what NC State is going to miss the most. I mean, like these are all key contributors that are going to be tough to lose. I don't know if there's. I mean, I don't want to say there's not a single person that like is like again. We just did UNC last show. Like UNC clearly Vance Honeycutt, and then it was like, all right, pick your second person. We're here. I don't know if there's a clear cut, like this is the person they're going to miss the most because all of these individuals had individual roles and individual situations where they really stepped up that I'm not like, oh my goodness, like this is the key or the biggest piece missing.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with AMAC just because he follows me. Of all the guys on this, I think AMAC, since he follows me on Twitter, is
you hear that? If you follow Monty on Twitter, he'll give you extra love.
I mean, I think that's already well known.
I do hope to see AMAC hopefully sometime in the spring or summer if he gets pulled up to the Dash this year. So that'd be really cool.
Absolutely. All right, but they bring in a ton of transfers, a lot of sophomores, and they've got some talented freshmen coming in, and Oscar agrees. But I'm really excited about some of these guys. But who's the name that stands out for you, Nick?
Man, you got two SEC guys there that I'm excited about, but I'll go with Trenton Lyons. I mean, that's going to be huge for them, huge for the outfield because they do lose a lot of outfield guys from last year with Serrano and Noah Souls being gone. Even Chase Nixon, too, who would play a lot in the outfield, especially in midweeks and in Sunday games. I think that's going to be a huge, huge gain for NC State.
Micah, what about you?
Can you guess mine, Monty?
I hope it's not my guy.
No, I'm going back to my well. Kingsport Axeman shows up on the sheet. We talk him. Jet Gilliam.
Jet Gilliam went? Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was Kingsport Axeman.
Did not know that.
Yeah. So he wasn't there very long, but he was fun to watch. He's someone I think I'm excited to kind of see. I mean, I think I know who you're going with, so I'm not going to say who my other choice would be because I think it's yours, Monty.
Go ahead and go with it. I can pivot. Go ahead.
Is it Ryan Jaros?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I think that's the one we talked about it on the Georgia Tech show we did. Like that was tough to, for Georgia Tech to lose him. Obviously, we're glad that we at least get to still cover him on a more consistent basis. But Monty just skipping over to rotation options now. Jeez.
I don't know how that happened. I wasn't touching anything. That was really weird.
But Jet Gilliam's someone to watch. He's got a lot of speed. He puts the ball in play. I'm excited to kind of see. I'm not going to lie. I was a little surprised when he got picked up by NC State. Not because I didn't think he was good enough, but I didn't see him enough. And sometimes those Appy League guys, right, they're the more mid-major kind of kids, unless they come from the power ranks already. Mm-hmm. But he was someone I really enjoyed watching.
He was the player to be named from Peyton Green's departure to Georgia Tech. So
I don't think that's how that. Oh, you're talking about Jaros.
Yes. I want to guess Monty's.
Oh, Mike already got it.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say maybe Eli Pillsbury because you're gonna make a lot of memes out of that.
Oh no. I was gonna pivot to Matt Austinfort, who I really like. I think he was a highly recruited guy. Braden Frostman really impressed me in the fall. I think he's going to be an underrated guy. Some of these JUCO guys that these ACC schools went out and got are absolute studs. That's something that's, I think, been a theme in our early preview episodes.
You just struck out to the Pillsbury Doughboy.
That'll have to be a video meme.
I'll do it for you.
All right, rotation options, and this is arguably one of the deepest staffs in the conference, but the rotation options, they've got a couple. I had to go back and add Jacob Duden because in the last week or so it's been talked about that he may actually be a rotation option. I'm not sure if I would move him into the rotation at this point, given how good they are at the back end when he's there. But the sophomores they have on both sides of the ball, I'm really excited about. And you can see Consiglio, Marone, Duden, and then you'll see a couple more when we talk about the options in the bullpen. But I love the staff here. And Micah, I'll start with you talking about some of this rotation. Who's the 3 guys you would go with in your weekend rotation, and then who would you maybe consider for a midweek role?
I know Cooper Consiglio gets a lot of love, and it's deserved. I love Ryan Marone. I got to see him in the midweek against UNCW. I think his stuff is nasty. I want to see him in the weekend rotation with Wilderson and Wilderson. I messed that. I botched that, didn't I?
Willardson.
That's I said it right?
Yeah.
Wilderson. Anyways, whatever.
Yeah.
And Dom Fritton. So I love Ryan Marone in that spot. He was one of the better midweek pitchers in my opinion in the ACC last year. So I'd love to see him there. I mean, obviously Cooper Consiglio would make sense there too, but maybe Ryan Marone in that spot.
Yeah. Who would be your midweek guy? Would you have Consiglio, or would you rather have Consiglio coming out of the bullpen?
I think I'd rather see Consiglio coming out of the bullpen, considering he's a lefty as well, and then have the ability to, maybe find a freshman that needs some time, or because that's what Ryan Marone was last year. He was the freshman that you wanted to kind of get him those experiences, but obviously not necessarily use him as a bullpen guy. So I'd love to see, maybe someone else come out. Or again, I don't think you want to use Duden if you're going to use him out of the bullpen for a midweek, but maybe Duden's an opener on the midweek or something.
I mean, supposedly he's added another pitch to his arsenal. I mean, his fastball. I mean, his high 90s fastball and killer slider just works so well out of the back end of the bullpen. But he's added another pitch, which it increases the odds of success as a starter. But Nick, what about you? Who are you taking in the rotation?
Yeah, I mean, this group of guys really reminds me of how deep Florida State's rotation was last year, because when they dealt with injuries, they just plugged and play, and State has the opportunity to do that too. If one guy's not feeling himself or one guy's struggling, you could just put someone else in the starting rotation during the weekend series. But if I'm picking 3, I think obviously Matt, Dom, and I think I'm with Micah. I would go Ryan as well. I think he has had a great experience in the midweeks last year. I know they're very excited with him. But any one of these guys, how can you not be excited about if they get a starting rotation position on weekend series? I mean, Duden, we obviously know what he can do. I think Schaffner is very underrated. I think he could be a midweek guy possibly, but those 3 guys, Matt, Dom, and Ryan, I think you got to be very excited about. And the reason why I am going Ryan instead of Jacob is because I think you got to if a guy can establish himself in the bullpen right out of the gates in your college career, you might want to consider keep doing that. So I mean, it's up to Avent, it's up to the pitching coaches, but I'm really big on if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So those are my 3.
Yeah, I'm probably going Willardson, Dom, Marone as well. And then I'll probably go Schaffner or even Jackson Lucas maybe in the midweek role to allow Consiglio and Duden to be coming out of the pen, because I just think that pen is so deep, and I think the pen's better than even the staff is. And if you're in a tie game or in a close game, and having that bullpen is a huge advantage, and having that many arms out of the bullpen is a huge advantage. Speaking of the bullpen, let's take a look at what we got here. I mean, Derek Smith and
that's what
Derek Smith and Jacob Duden at the back end is just unbelievable. You're going to get Shane Van Dam back in April. Hopefully he can still be effective as he's coming back from that injury. But I mean, I think you've got 3 more sophomores there in Lucas, Wimbish, and Andrews who could have big step forwards this year.
Yeah, absolutely.
Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can't wait to see Shane come back after he dealt with that injury at Florida State last year. But yeah, I was going to bring up Derek Smith in the rotation options, but there obviously he is going to be be a key reliever for NC State. But even guys like Heath Andrews, he's going to be huge. He was a good freshman last year. Didn't see a whole lot of time, but I think he's going to be one of those guys you want to look out for that could get a lot of innings this year.
Yeah, and shout out Jackson Lucas, by the way, who I highlighted in my sophomore breakout article for Just Baseball. I did mention Wimbus and Andrews as well in that section on Lucas. I basically was trying to decide between which of the three I thought would most likely break out, and I went with Lucas given his past experience, but I think all three are very capable. Wimbish looks like a late inning reliever possibility. The way I saw his stuff in the fall. Micah, talk to me about this NC State bullpen.
You guys just basically said every single name. I mean, there's not too much more.
Nobody mentioned Jacob Dinas or Eli Pillsbury or Landon Carr.
Yeah, well, okay. I mean, I talk about guys that I'm not super familiar with. You know, let's throw me a great bone here, buddy. Appreciate that. No, I mean, this bullpen's deep. I mean, that's really I think the summary of it. And it's the bullpen of the best bullpen in the ACC. You know, according to some, including myself. So I think there's reason to be excited about it. But
yeah, and like you mentioned with Cooper Consiglio coming out of the bullpen rather than being a midweek guy, if he's the midweek guy, you don't have him out of the bullpen, and that leaves only two lefties in Dinas and Pillsbury.
Nice for the Pillsbury meme. It's been great.
Yeah, but yeah, no, this is arguably the best bullpen in the ACC. It's going to be a lot of fun to see. Here's how I kind of had it shaken out. There is the dude, nice. Jacob Duden, in Omaha. But yeah, Willitson, Fritton, Marone, Schaffner is who I put in the midweek. And then I gave them three relief aces.
I'm going to say that. You haven't done that, Monty, on
I could have
graphic yet.
I could have done four if Shane Van Dam was healthy. It's a very, very deep group, and you've got a lot of top arms there at the back end. And I think that's what makes NC State. That's going to give them, I think, a little bit of leeway with their offense that we're about to look at here in a second. Starting with the catchers, we got to replace Jacob Cozart, right? But they've got a ready-made replacement, right, Nick?
That's right. Best walk-up song.
These baseballs love Sosa.
What'd you say, Micah?
These baseballs love Sosa.
Oh yeah, and Drew
That's the walk-up song. Thank you, Micah.
I don't know if the word baseball's in the song, but you know.
And Drew Lanphier is a pretty good second option whose bat might see the lineup more often than not.
Yeah.
It's you feel pretty good about the catching position, but this is where it gets a little bit more fluid here. We've got some guys, some unproven guys. Luke Nixon's the only guy back in this group. Not listed as well as a freshman named Brandon Novi, who could be getting some playing time as well. But Matt Havener is back on the screen as well.
Yeah.
But Nick, how are we feeling about this infield right now?
God, it really is so different than last year. It's very young. A lot of guys that need to prove themselves. I'm just asking, do you think it's going to be Nixon over Havner?
Oh, absolutely. I think Nixon is the guy. But on opening day, if there's some possibility that Justin DeCrisio might not be ready for opening day, Nixon might slide over to short, which would open the door for Havener to start at second.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, it's definitely an infield that needs to prove themselves for sure. I mean, you had studs all over the infield with Butterworth, and they were all transfer guys, Butterworth and Pennington and Makarevich.
Same situation with younger guys now. I really think Jaros and Austin Ford are going to be great. McHugh could also he had a pretty decent early part of the fall, maybe kind of fell a little bit down towards the end of it, but I am a big fan of the upside of Austin Fort and Jaros because those are two guys that can really set themselves up for the 2026 MLB draft with big sophomore years.
Yeah, Matt
Micah,
Austin Fort's someone that I'm circling because he has no real production from his time at Vanderbilt. So, again, you saw them in the fall, right, Monty? You did stop at NC State?
Yep, I saw them. I saw them both against Elon and against Duke.
Yeah, so obviously you've seen him. I mean, there's not too much. I mean, I've seen some high school stuff, but I mean, it's not. There's nothing that with him that gets me. I mean, I was kind of surprised. I mean, I know you saw it more, but I thought maybe there was Chris McHugh was going to be the starter at first. So, that just kind of tells you, right, that there's options there that are good options, but we just don't know how it's going to necessarily pan out. And, obviously you're high on what you saw. So I'll trust you on this one, Monty.
Yeah, and Austin Fort and Jaros were picked to be two breakout sophomores for me in an article I wrote. I keep plugging those two articles I have, but I want to highlight the guys that I highlighted. And those were two under the radar guys for me with Jaros and Austin Fort, who could really they're not going to hit the standards that Pennington and Amax set, but I think they're going to have very big sophomore seasons. It's just as fluid in the outfield, guys. We got a lot of options here in the outfield, including Andrew Schaffner, who's a two-way player. Jet Gilliam could be the option in center field. I would have preferred to see Ty Head. I'm hearing that Frostman and Hogue might be flipped in what I have up here. It might be Frostman in right and Hogue in left. But we've got a lot of depth here in the outfield, Nick. That's got to be really exciting. You got some options.
Yeah, a lot of options and a lot of the guys that were from the portal. I'm just really excited to see Josh Hogue back. I mean, he suffered that leg injury late in the season and was a potential blow. I mean, luckily the team did well without him. I mean, that right field position was just a revolving door last year. I hope we get to see some consistency. We lost Noah Souls last year, and then Josh was a great replacement for him. And then when Josh broke his leg, Noah had to come back early from ankle surgery. So I'm excited to see what Josh is going to be able to do this year. He was kind of that surprise piece that just kind of came out of nowhere where you needed him. So hopefully we see some consistency in just the position in right field. But other than that, the outfield, again, pretty young, but you have a lot of options and a lot of transfer options too.
Yeah, I really, really like Ty Head. But Micah, what are your thoughts on this outfield and what we've got here?
A lot of unproven. We'll see what we get, honestly. I mean, I'd be lying to you if I said I feel confident in any individual player. I think the confidence is that they're going to figure it out. But other than that, I mean, there's not really anything that makes me go, yeah. Like, I think Josh Hogue is probably the more, probably most confident than I am in anybody. But again, there's a lot of unproven, a lot of things just to, they have the depth. So they're going to be able to figure it out. But is it like how the three are going to shape? Who's going to be the more, everyday individuals? I don't know. I'd be lying if I made something up. So yeah.
And that's what I'm talking about with some of the fluidity in this team. I think it's going to take about a month or a month and a half to kind of figure out the lineup and the order on the offensive side. And I think that's where the pitching staff's going to have to really hold them steady through the opening couple of weeks. Here's a look at what I kind of had for the lineup and the batting order here. They've got a lot of left-handed bats. It gets interesting in there. You've got, Nixon possibly leading off, DeCrisio, Sosa, Frostman, Lanfear, Austin Fort, Jaros, Hogue, and then Gilliam. But you got some options there. But again, we don't know if DeCrisio is necessarily ready for opening day, or if he's going to have to DH, or what the deal is. So it's going to be really interesting to see how it kind of unfolds. But what are we thinking about this lineup, Micah? We'll start with this. Who's the guy that you're highlighting in this lineup?
Alex Sosa.
That's why I let you go first, by the way.
Alex Sosa. I mean, watching him he kind of struggled with Team USA, but it was, again, kind of what I talked about with Daniel Cuvée when we talked about Miami. It was kind of one of those, like, you could tell it was a learning thing. Obviously, his call-up was kind of unexpected. I mean, I remember asking him, like, so what was that like? He's like, yeah, I was out fishing, and then all of a sudden I saw I missed a call from Coach Avent basically saying, hey, can you get to Johnson City, Tennessee to go play for Team USA? But, I mean, you could tell that he really took advantage of that opportunity to face some of the best in the country. So I think he's probably the one I'm most excited for, and circling is, like, the guy in the lineup.
What about you, Nick?
Let's go with Luke Nixon. The kid saw a lot of time last year, was in and out of the lineup a lot. I mean, if he's potentially going to be the leadoff spot, he's going to have to get on base, and you need that momentum. The lineup itself is, it's a lot of guys that need to prove themselves. It's not a lot of experience in the lineup, a lot of names you got to get familiar with. It was really unlike what we did the other night for UNC, where it's just like bat after bat after bat. These are going to be some new names with a couple of guys that are going to stand out that you saw last year. And again, I already talked about Josh and how he is coming back from injury and how he was just a pleasant surprise to have when Noah Souls went down. So, but I'll go with Luke. I mean, he was, again, in and out of the lineup, made some key hits last year, which was good for the lineup. So we'll see.
Yeah, he played in 55 games last year. I know the 238 batting average doesn't jump off the plate to you, but what gives me a lot of hope is as a true freshman, he struck out as many times as he walked, which is an impressive feature. Normally you'll see a lot more disparity between the strikeouts and the walks. He walked as many times as he struck out, which is 34 times, which is already a pretty decent number for a freshman. And then, of course, he got hit by 11 pitches. So, he can get on base pretty well if he can just add more to that average. I think he's a prime breakout candidate, and he needs to be. But the guy I'm going to circle is going to be, Ryan Jaros, and I think he needs to have he talked to me in an interview that he wants to really add power, and he needs to add power because that's the thing that they really lost from last year to this year. And if he can help fill in some of that vacuum, that's going to be huge. But one of the issues with that is if you're looking at this lineup, they're going to need to run. They're going to have to do hit and runs. They're going to have to steal some bags, and that's where Luke Nixon, Justin DeCrisio, and Braden Frostman are going to be critical. Jet Gilliam as well. Just running those bases and getting some stolen bases and creating some runs, because that's going to be they're missing a lot of power from last season. I mean, you're losing. Going down the list, you lose 19 home runs from Cozart. You lose 18 home runs from Pennington, 24 from Makarevich. I mean, that's a lot of power numbers that you're not going to be able to replace. So you're going to have to do something to generate the offense.
Yeah.
Looking at the schedule, they have a pretty nice opening weekend. They're going to face Fordham to open things up on the 14th, but they get to go to Jacksonville. They get to see me. We get a pretty nice slate there with NC State taking on Ohio State, Alabama, Coastal. We're going to see what NC State looks like in the early goings pretty quickly. We're going to find out what they're going to be about. Obviously, how you start is not as relevant as how you finish, but we're going to find out early what the early edition of the team looks like in Jacksonville. What series or matchup jumps out of the page to you, Nick?
That Clemson series at home is going to be huge in April. Obviously, Carolina is always big. Finishing off at Stanford.
Home.
Oh, no, that's home. That's home. But finishing off Stanford is going to be huge, too. Very interesting how Stanford's the last team in the schedule. But I do want to point out, I really wish that State would just schedule ECU in a 3-game series. I'm getting kind of, just as a State fan, I'm tired of the midweeks and not putting out our best against a, Omaha caliber ECU team or super regional caliber ECU team. But other than that, I'm really highlighting that Clemson series. That's going to be huge for them.
Yeah, I mean, getting to see, I'm trying to remember, Trey Savage last year would have been nice, like to test NC State's offense against Trey Savage and Zach Root.
Yeah.
But obviously you don't get that opportunity in the midweek. But yeah, I'm hoping to go to that April 8th game at East Carolina. That might be my first jungle game. But Micah, talk to me about their schedule. I know you're big on noticing some of the trends for these teams in terms of the schedule and how it's looking.
Well, first off, Nick, do you ever think about ECU not wanting to play NC State in a midweek or in a weekend? Because then their weekends would be like all top 15 teams all the time. So
well, I mean,
don't
they
think it's an
scheduled
NC State
Carolina in a three-game series.
Yeah, but that's an established thing, though. That's been a thing forever. So, like, why would you? You're not going to break that relationship because, like, I guarantee you, NC State's not going to go play them in a midweek or play them like on a neutral site. Maybe they will, but like, if that's a deciding factor, like, If I'm ECU, I'm not playing NC State and UNC every single year as my weekends out of conference. That's brutal.
Especially when you're trying to figure out the first couple of weeks can be some trial and error and figuring out your roles and your stuff. That's a really brutal start to the year while you're trying to experiment a little bit.
And that leads me to what I was going to say with NC State's schedule. Like you talked about it, Monty. Like we have a lot of question marks. The outfield, the lineup, how it's going to piece together. I mean, yes, the Jacksonville Baseball Classic is good. It's not as good as last year's field, in my opinion. At least not on paper. I mean, Iowa wasn't great, but going into the year, especially like with Brody Brecht and all that stuff, there's a lot of buzz around Iowa. Like Alabama is going to make the NCAA tournament, it feels like, but they're not like, top 5 SEC team. Coastal Carolina is not even preseason top 3 in a lot of Sun Belt polls right now. They're taking a step back with obviously Gilmore retiring and stuff like that.
I'm surprised
Ohio State's on the rise, but Ohio State's still not probably there just yet. And that's your toughest. I mean, until Virginia Tech, which again, your first 2 ACC series is a Virginia Tech and Pitt. Like they're really not going to be, in my opinion, overly tested in back-to-back games until Duke.
And hopefully by that point they have figured
Correct.
some stuff out.
So this schedule, it kind of felt like Elliott Avent kind of knew, right? The writing on the wall. We're going to have to figure some stuff out. Let's take Fordham. Let's take Canisius. Let's take Wright State. Wright State's a good Horizon League program, but NC State figuring things out should still win that series. So it plays out pretty well, in my opinion, for them. I mean, the ACC, I'm sure there was no actual we're going to help you out, but it just benefit. They lucked into your first 2 weekends being, again, those bottom 4, bottom 5 teams in the ACC preseason polls. So you're kind of in a spot where, if you don't have it figured out by March 28th, March 30th, you're in trouble because you've got Duke, Virginia, at ECU, Louisville, Clemson coming down the pipeline in the next couple weekends. And obviously the ECUs are midweeks. But, I mean, I think overall this schedule breaks out. It allows NC State to figure it out and not take a lot of losses in the process.
One thing I notice about this is it does not appear that Nick is going to have to choose between NC State and Wake Forest.
You have no idea how nice that is.
Until the ACC championship game, where that's the JC championship game.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, right. Although I will say it is because being an ACC traditionalist, it is kind of sad not seeing Wake on the schedule, and then looking at, I know we'll get to Wake's schedule later down the road, but not having 2 in-state conference teams on your schedule is kind of a bummer.
I mean, UVA doesn't have UNC, which I think is surprising.
Yeah, that too.
But anyway, back to Micah's point on the Jacksonville College Classic. I think that's an interesting discussion to see which slate is better versus this year and last year, because obviously Auburn didn't live up to expectations last year. Iowa had a lot of hype going into the season, but it's interesting because we'd be talking about teams that we know how they fared after last year, and then we don't know how these teams will ultimately fare. It's a really interesting discussion, but I think Micah argued it pretty well. I don't know if I necessarily agree, but I think it was some good points, and I can see where he's coming from.
I don't know why you don't agree with me, Monty. I'm right.
All right, that's going to bring us towards the end here. What is the ceiling and the floor for this NC State team? We'll start with you, Micah. What's the ceiling for this NC State team?
Just put 2025 on there. College World Series.
All right, what's the floor?
The floor is, I guess, first round bust, but I don't think they missed the tournament.
Yeah, with that bullpen being the way it is, they should not.
The worst disaster scenario, which we'll never want to assume, is they just go through a terrible injury bug through the pitching.
Yeah, we don't even want to contemplate that.
Yeah, so that's the only way I see them missing is if that just all falls by the wayside, and then while you're also trying to figure out your lineup, just the kind of sky starts falling. But
yeah,
I mean that's worst case scenario that we don't want to talk about.
Yeah, Nick.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're one of those top third teams in the conference that can potentially make Omaha again. I definitely can see that happening. Floor, yeah, I think Micah made a great point. I mean, if they can't figure it out and there's some kind of injury bug, that would be very, very bad. But there's always a chance, even if they are healthy and all that, they could find themselves as like a 2 seed in a regional and not get out of that. So I could definitely see that as well. So they definitely have a high ceiling and maybe lower floor than most when we talk about potential Omaha teams. So set 2 seed, first round out or first round exit. I could see that happening.
Yeah. I could also see them being a 3 seed and having some struggles during the regular season and then making a run to Omaha as a 3 seed. Like, you know, it's a pretty wide floor. And I think I said something similar to this last year. And obviously I was kind of right on how they'd finish. They finished hot and could make it to Omaha. I was wrong on how, when they would start that hot streak and that it would be enough to sustain them into a regional host. Yeah, I think it's a similar thing, and I agree with you guys. But that's going to wrap it up for us on NC State, unless you guys have any more thoughts on the Wolfpack.
Just please don't. We had such a great 2024, and this 24-25 season has been such a letdown in NC State sports with football and basketball. My goodness. Elliot Avens, save us.
Honestly, yeah, their floor might actually just be missing the tournament, Monty, just because of what NC State's like. Whatever deal they made with the Devil in 23-24 is just coming back to get them this year.
Let's hope not. But
SMU.
Well, I mean, they're going to win the ACC championship apparently. So
yeah, I did say that, didn't I?
But that's going to do it for us. We'll be back tomorrow night with the Fighting Irish of Notre Dame. Until then, for Micah and Nick, I'm Monty Taylor, and it just means